we're going to turn back to Hurricane Laura, churning off the Gulf of Mexico, keeping up with Mother Nature and her wrath. The National Hurricane Center warns that there is a significant threat of tornadoes once the storm makes landfall and then moves inland. So we're back with CBS News meteorologist and climate specialist Jeff Berardelli to talk a little bit more about this. So, Jeff, I know we were waiting for an update on the storm. I think that comes out kind of around now. Hopefully we have that. What do we know so far about what's going on with the storm?
We do have it. It's stronger. Winds are now 125 miles an hour. Once it gets to 130 miles an hour, it becomes a Cat 4, and it's almost certain that that is likely to happen over the next few hours or so. I should tell the folks who are watching from this area right now that you probably have been through a lot of storms. If you've lived there for more than 20 years or so, you've seen one after another. This is likely to be the strongest storm you have ever experienced if you're located near Sabine Pass, Port Arthur, Beaumont, Lake Charles, Cameron. So even though you've been through really bad hurricanes, this is likely to be the worst. In fact, the wording from the National Hurricane Center on storm surge is unsurvivable. They're saying that if you are in the path of this storm surge and you do not leave, it is not going to be survivable. Just to give you an idea of how strong the storm is becoming. This is a look at the satellite. You can see all the strong thunderstorms wrapping around the center. Now, watch the eyes becoming more and more clear, still a teeny bit ragged. Once it's not ragged anymore, and that'll happen in the next 3-4 hours, once it's a concentric circle, it's off to the races. It will be a Category 4 hurricane with winds over 130 miles an hour. You can kind of see the eye right there. Rainfall not quite moving in yet, but some of the heavy bands about to move in. Hurricane warnings in effect, storm surge warnings in effect as well. This is the latest track from the National Hurricane Center, almost immediately becoming a Category 4. That will happen late this afternoon, early this evening. Look at that, winds 145 miles an hour. Now, it's very important to note there's a big difference between storms that are weakening at landfall and storms that are strengthening. Take a storm with the same wind speeds. A storm that is strengthening is going to produce a lot more damage because it has that upward momentum. And because this is a new storm, it's only been a hurricane for, a couple of days, and it's only been a strong hurricane for a couple of hours now. It is in its intensifying phase. It's very unlikely it's going to weaken much before landfall. Landfall happens around midnight or just after that. As a Cat 4, as it moves onshore, devastating storm surge, devastating winds. You need to be in your safe place very, very soon. Then the storm moves up through the Mississippi Valley and weakens as we head into Thursday and again on Friday to a tropical storm and eventually to a tropical depression. There's a look at the future radar, and you can see how circular the appearance of the storm becomes, these really strong bands on the northern side. And as this comes ashore, if you're along the path or just east of the path, that's where the worst storm surge is going to be. That's where the worst winds are going to be.
So, Jeff, I know we've talked to you in the past about this. Can you perhaps give us some insight into how climate change is playing a part in these hurricanes and also the wildfires that we're seeing out west?
Yeah, so climate change is playing a part in both of these. Climate change doesn't cause hurricanes during hurricane season. We have them anyway. Climate change doesn't cause fires. We have them anyway. The fires were ignited by lightning. However, climate change sets the stage. We had a heat wave, one of the worst ever in the West, 130 degree temperature in Death Valley. We've had a long-term drought, not just a drought over the past 20 years, not just a drought this year, but this is one of the worst droughts we've seen in 1,200 years in the West. In terms of hurricanes, water temperatures are warm, at least a couple of degrees above normal. And since 1900, water temperatures in the tropical Atlantic have gone up by 2 degrees Fahrenheit. The bottom line is there's more energy in the system, and energy feeds into extreme weather. So climate change enhances, boosts, spikes these storms, makes them stronger, makes these fires worse. So take a look at these wind gusts now, Vlad, that we're talking about as this storm heads towards the coast. The worst of the wind begins as we head through the middle part of the evening. Winds already gusting by midnight to around 83 miles an hour in Port Arthur, 118 in Cameron. Watch the winds really begin to surge even more by 2 a.m. 127 miles an hour, Cameron, 119 in Port Arthur, and right in this area in between, that's where winds are likely to gust probably over 150, maybe 160 miles an hour. Very few structures can withstand that, except for really solid structures. Then the system moves north after that. I want to show you this. This is probably the most important map I am going to show you. Wherever you see the red, That is storm surge over 9 feet. The National Hurricane Center, when they updated their cone just about a half hour ago, updated their surge to 15 to 20 feet of storm surge. Now, Hurricane Rita, which is the storm of record in this area, hit almost the exact same area. It was a similar strength, although it was weakening at landfall. That produced 15 feet of storm surge. It was a larger storm, but it was a weakening storm. This one is a strengthening storm at landfall. It'll likely be stronger than landfall of Rita, which means we have to tack on at least a few feet of storm surge to this storm as it moves inland. So this is by far the most deadly aspect of these storms. But it's summertime. Prepare for power outages, maybe weeks without air conditioning. That is very dangerous in the long term. A lot of fatalities happen not when the storm hits, but afterwards because people don't have the supplies. And as far as rainfall, a foot or more is possible as the system moves on shore. And guys, I want to show you just one more thing, just to kind of compare this storm with Rita. Rita's track was almost the exact same track. This one is a little bit stronger, but Rita took the exact same track. So if you were there during Rita, expect Rita type impacts plus a little bit more. It's going to be worse than Rita.
Really good information, Jeff, as always. Thank you very, very much. And I'm glad you pointed out how dangerous that storm surge is going to be for some folks. Really, really good admonition. Thank you very much, my friend.